Oh shit. So Peninsula is the sequel to Train to Busan. Set 4 years after the events of the first film, Korea has become quarantined since the zombie outbreak. Our new main characters are sent back into the dead zone to find a truck full of money. So yes, I'm a big fan of the first one. Train to Busan was this nail-biting zombie film with intense action and a grounded, relatable plot. We've all taken trains before, so imagine being on one while zombies take over your country. Imagine having your daughter with you and trying to get her to safety. It was gripping stuff and I fucking loved it. So I got pretty excited when I found out the same makers are doing a sequel. So what the fuck happened? I really liked the first 10 minutes. It was small, grounded, and emotionally draining. You know those soldiers who do inhumane things in these typical pandemic films? Well, our main character happens to be one of them, and it actually humanized the people we usually perceive as being monstrous. I really like that. The way he's crippled by guilt based on his decisions, it's all good stuff and felt right at home with Train to Busan. But after that, Peninsula just plummeted, man, and almost every positive I could find was held back. First of all, the plot. It began with personal trauma, which I liked, and then it turned into a shallow collect the money scheme derived by mobsters. Nowhere near as compelling as the father-daughter dynamic of the first one, nor the beginning of this film. And the actors did a good job, but they weren't enough to hold my attention because they weren't given enough meat to work with. The characters were just flat. They barely had anything interesting to say. They were boring, generic, typical badasses. And the next problem I had was, well, with the zombies themselves. I swear, there were more CGI zombies than live actors. And as a zombie fan, I was pretty pissed off that I didn't get to see an army of extras caked head to toe in awesome zombie makeup, which is a tradition for this genre. And the zombies weren't even the focus here, because the film decided to introduce a literal army of typical cardboard cutout psychopaths that we always seem to get in these types of films. The villains. Oh god, the villains. The cliche of humans being worse than the monsters. But instead of there being an interesting reason for their bad deeds, they're just cartoon characters. Kidnapping innocent people, starving them and forcing them into survival games where they have to fight off zombies barehanded for 2 minutes. I assure you it's nowhere near as interesting as it sounds. It came across as a rejected idea from one of the Purge sequels. It was just ridiculous. These people were cartoony and cruel for the sake of being cruel. No sense of nuance or humanity. They were boring the hell out of me. Why are we watching these dull lunatics when there's an entire country full of zombies that we could be concentrating on? Now let's talk about the action. Look, believe it or not, I actually had an issue with some of the action in the first film. Most of it felt relatable and realistic, but there was also this muscle-bound badass who felt like he belonged in an 80s Arnie flick. He was supposed to be a regular, everyday man, but simply because he lifted weights, he almost felt invincible, being able to manhandle groups of running zombies with great ease. Which kind of diffused the tension and realism for me, but because those scenes were done very well and they didn't consume the whole film, I could easily forgive it all and get past it and enjoy. However, Peninsula took that small problem and just pumped it full of steroids. I just couldn't buy into what I was seeing. Almost every action scene was plagued by an abundance of choreography and convenience. It was like gun fu, like someone turned on a cheat code in a video game. Hardly anyone missed the shot, pinpoint precision, and also the hand-to-hand combat looked like they were dancing. I just couldn't feel the stakes. I understand that these characters are supposed to be trained soldiers, but this is just ridiculous. And the car chase scenes? Oh dear. It was like a cheap version of Fast and Furious. Unconvincing CGI and car crashes, insane maneuvers with ultra slow-mo to give us enough time to process this shit. But worst of all, on multiple occasions during these chases, our main characters manage to use the zombies against the bad guys who are chasing them. It's hard to explain that with just my voice, so all I'm going to say is, see this mess for yourselves and you'll get it. I honestly couldn't believe what I was seeing. These characters just didn't feel vulnerable. They were like superheroes. This doesn't fit in with Train to Busan. The laws of physics have changed. It's just ridiculous. And it was seriously starting to drain my energy. I was insanely bored and I was praying for it to end. And once I finally got to the end, well, I was slightly caught off guard. I got to admit, I thought the ending was well done, and I liked the way it tied into the intro, which, again, I was swept up in. I liked the message about the importance of family, and I actually felt touched by it, especially the music that played throughout. But including the intro, that's 15 to 20 minutes of good material in a 2-hour snooze fest. That doesn't make a good film. The characters were flat, the zombies and villains were dull, I barely felt a resemblance of tension, and the action scenes were ridiculous. I was frustrated and bored out of my mind. How did the makers of Train to Busan come back for a sequel and create this? It didn't feel like a cash grab, so I have no idea what happened. But the most confusing element was, why this story? Why was this the first sequel we got to Train to Busan? Because what we should have got was some type of sidequel, set during the events of the first film instead of years after. If the entire population of Korea was apparently directly affected by the zombie outbreak, there are literally millions of stories for you to choose from. And I'm sure they would have been far more interesting and relatable than this mess. I have no idea how this was their first attempt at expanding this into a franchise. I was left feeling very disappointed, and a few good moments can't vindicate that. And I'll never see this film again. So I'm going to give Peninsula a 4.5 out of 10. If you're a fan of the first one and you want to see more, don't come here. That would be like watching Battle Royale, leaving that film on a high, and then going straight into the second one and just feeling crushed. Just watch something else like #Alive. As far as I'm concerned, that's the true sequel to Train to Busan, and it's criminally underrated. But if you choose to ignore me and watch this film anyway, well, I hope you have a much better time than I did. Thanks for watching, guys. Give me a like, give me a sub, and remember, the badger appreciates ya.